So Frank, on that, I am really, really interested in your perspective, perhaps in the form of leadership notes, to a lot of these entrepreneurs out there that in their business case, they may need to reshape a market or create a market. So how do you think about when you're evaluating investments, when you're evaluating entrepreneurs, when you're mentoring others, how do you get that entrepreneur to help shape a market and install ideas rather than just sell ideas which other people may not take?
When you think, for me, you think of the internet as zeros and ones.
Yep.
So it's a binomial model. And that binomial approach helps that when you look at a new industry emerging, you have to put a macro hat on. And when you're going to turn around and say, I'm going to make a specific investment, you then have to go micro.
Okay.
And that's when I say that you have to bet on the jockey, not the horse. It's really important to recognize when you invest in the jockey, when you invest in the horse, because you can have the best jockey and it's a bad horse and it's a bad industry, it's just a bad play. And it's recognizing it's a macro, micro. When I look at government policies, and I write about this in all my prospectuses, that we believe that government policies are a precursor to change. It's really not that complex. Don't get caught up with as a Democrat, Republican, that's all noise. It's really their policies. Okay, well, they got so many policies. No, the policies actually are binomial. You're a political leader, you're monetary, you're the Federal Reserve, or you're a politician, you are fiscal. If you're monetary, what's going to determine the value of the country's currency and the growth of the country? It's in monetary policy, it's binomial again. It's money supply you're going to print. That's really important to recognize, and the cost of money.
Okay.
Is the cost of money too high to stimulate? Is there no inflation? Is there inflation? So that's really a simple way to look at complexity in a binomial way. Now we go to fiscal policy. That's where the politicians show up. What are they going to do? They're going to spend and tax. And the other informal way of tax is regulations. So it's really simple. Where are they going to spend the money? So when you have a country like America that punches way above its weight, if you like the laws of physics where force is equal to MA, we got to think of this is a little country, 4% of the world's population, but we're 25% of the world GDP. When we tilt up our economy, it's huge on the global scene. It's a huge force. So now you want to turn around and say, okay, where are they going to go spend the money? They're going to tax it over here. Where's it going? Look for those industries. Well, who are the best captains of those industries? Who are the great CEOs of the industry? They have a certain DNA of personality and driven and passion. And so you can marry macro to micro, and that allows you to the dual processing thinking, and do not get caught up with the political party. You want to argue on their policies. Are they really good for social stability? Are they good for economic development? Are they going to slow down biotech? Is a new regulation going to accelerate or slow it down? Will a technology, now will this technology, what will it do to an industry? So right now, I believe that the AI is like electricity when it first came out. If you look at manufacturing them, they were so big, those big steam engines that gets up of power and energy conversion. Along comes electricity. In only 20 years, all of a sudden Ford's got the assembly line. It's a revolution. It changed everything about industrial production. And today, AI is going to do that. It's going to squeeze out any type of waste and take that money and that energy of human power and redirect it somewhere else. Yeah. So classic would be a friend of mine's a medical doctor, and he does new retinas on your eye. And it used to be having big thick glasses on, his neck's over, looking at your eyeball, and he's stitching on a new retina, and it's all by hand-eye coordination. Now with AI, it's 99.9% accurate where he actually puts in, I would call it the tent pegs. He's putting on a new retina, like putting up a tent, and it's so accurate, and he doesn't have a sore neck, and he does it in 20 minutes.
It's incredible.
It's unbelievable. Well, he'll tell you that's AI. And so AI is all of a sudden going to change my capacity to have corrective vision much faster, better, and easier. And it's now, this is a macro. AI is a macro. Now we got to turn around and say, okay, what industries is going to have the most significant impact, and who are the leaders are going to embrace it? So one of the things you're seeing on all these universities is the digital transformation officer. So you can go and get a certification, but the research has shown all those companies that went through digital transformation before COVID, stocks went up 500% during COVID. So you look at a company like Domino's Pizza. It was the worst pizza in the world. Okay, the worst. And they bring a guy in from Boston from a big, believe Bain & Company, and he comes in and he says, you have all this data of all the complaints, you have all the data of everything you have, we're going to start digitizing and applying AI, and we're going to start looking at it all before COVID had. COVID hits, he's figured out how to make deliveries, how to do this, how to change the pizza, how to everything, and the stock goes up 500%. Because he did the digitization. The same, they looked at a bank in Singapore that led in the digitization. What did they do? They sent their best brains to Apple and to Jeff Bezos' organization, Amazon in Seattle, to find out, and they have pictures at the bank in Singapore, what would Jeff think? What would Steve do? To remind you, because your personality is not an entrepreneur, how can I make you feel comfortable getting out of that chair where you feel totally safe? I'm safe here, but I'm going to take a risk if I get up. What would Jeff think? Okay, I'm getting up. Yeah. And that to me was just remarkable. You buy a car there, they deliver the car to your house. It's all done with your facial recognition. It's all done with your car. You pick all the car. They organize it all digital. You don't have to spend your Saturday afternoon, you're with the kids, you don't have to go to car parking lots. Just sort of think of how they just sailed right through. And so it's recognizing we're so early, and with what NVIDIA has done, NVIDIA is so much further ahead. Other people they're going to have a new chip, they're going to be this, they're so far behind where they are. So I do believe we're going to go through this huge transformation, and it's going to be the CEOs that are actually embracing that they're the chief digital transformation officer. Because Harvard come up with research to show that if you outsource it to a new officer, it really doesn't get done. Yeah. But you're the commander, and you're saying, we're sailing south, that's what we're doing, then the digital officer will make sure that it's going to get executed. So they're the fun things.
I love it. We hear from a lot of folks, certainly at the CEO level, that are concerned about, like, where do I place my bets when it comes to bringing technology like AI into the organization? Like you were describing, it's like electricity, this general purpose instrument, but how do I put it to work in the organization? Do you have any recommendations on how these CEOs can begin to have a framework to evaluate these things so they, in fact, can take on that role?
Well, I think you had to become a bit of a geek at the time.
Okay.
And I think from in the Boston arena, it's the MIT is publishing, and HBS, Harvard Business School, they do it. There's extensive amount of research. Every year I go to Harvard for a week. It's joyful. I have to put 60 hours of reading cases, and I show up with 150 CEOs from 80 countries. We live in the Tata dorms, and we go to class from 9 to 5, and then we do group sessions where we talk about all these cases, and during the day we get, no, you're way off base on that case. Okay. And you that learning process, they've really put a big push on the digital transformation of how CEOs, so there's lots of content of different industry CEOs, what they're doing in the application. So you have to think about different industries have different needs. Pharma in particular is the creation of a new drug. That should, and logistic companies, they know in the airlines, because I have my JETS ETF, which is it's a quant-based approach. Once again, looking at how do you create an airline ETF, and one of our favorites in there is JetBlue. It's sort of interesting looking at who has the great revenue per seat. That's how you analyze airlines. So it's the revenue per seat and the cost per seat. So the more seats are out there, it doesn't mean you're profitable. Who has that margin? And that's all quant driven. Okay. So what did they do? The biggest complaint, it's not the weather. You don't control the weather. If they lose your bag, They lost the camera, the lights aren't here yet, now you're really ticked off.
Yeah.
They control that. So they spent, I think it was $8 billion in this is before COVID, and spending money in AI, before what we know today, to not lose your baggage. And they had an 86% improvement of not losing bags. So that made you feel better about checking a bag, and especially at a conference, checking the deliverables you want to have for your conference. And so AI is going to change all the travel, everything you're looking at, like I mentioned, eye surgery, medical procedures. It's open, the open ChatGPT. It was really the retail wake up that this has already been going on. Okay, it's just now open to the public. This is what you can see and do with it. It's how fast you use it. So this morning I had breakfast and it was around the table, and a couple really important people you would think of, they're not using it. And I know there's biases in it, but it's phenomenal. I'm going to Turkey in 2 weeks, and I want to see what are the 10 biggest sites, the most important sites to see. In 5 seconds, there's the sites. The old days, going to Google, you'd go down the rabbit hole for 3 hours, finding this site, Expedia is trying to do an advertisement. No, if I want to go there, I can go after I crystallize. And I'm going to an African safari, so you can all of a sudden get itemized all the healthcare, whatever thing you have to think of, instantaneously. So I think that the ChatGPT, things of that nature, are going to change only if you embrace it and learn how to use it.
Yeah. Do you think that these senior executives should spend a fair amount of time watching their competitors and how they may be adopting technologies like AI, Web3, et cetera, while they're trying to figure their own strategy out?
Well, there's, like I said, MIT, HBS are spending a lot of time and effort with free content too, a lot of it, on industry specific. So you want to go and dig down to your industry, which I really recommend to a lot of people, and it surprised me, like I'm a little older, I'm 69, and I'm talking to younger CEOs in their 50s, and it was interesting that they don't use YouTube to the degree, and you can go into YouTube and get an interview like this, but you can go there and get an interview of someone using AI for an industry. You can, so in the business of Hive Digital, being the first crypto mining company ever to go public, is going into the AI space. Well, I realized early as a young analyst, because they wouldn't let me, when I first tried to do this, I was trying to launch a Bitcoin ETF in 2017. Realized it wasn't going to happen. So when you launch the first crypto mining company, you don't have a KYC or AML problem because you mine the original coin. And that journey was such a learning curve, and someone said, Frank, you're in the data center business. I am. No, I thought it was Bitcoin related to gold, and they both read the same reason. It's private assets, it's digital. No, you're in the data center business. Okay, what am I going to learn? Well, the process of going on to all the major brokerage firms, get their reports. YouTube was the fastest. It was unbelievable that explaining to me this data center versus that data. They come in 4 different tiers. There used to be only predominantly 3. Okay, what's the difference in the cost? It's this much per megawatt. What do you need to have? You need to have redundancy. So all of a sudden, now I realize I'm in the data center business, but Bitcoin mining's very different than AI. It's like driving a Porsche versus an F-51 Ford truck, pickup truck. And that's where the Bitcoin mining is. It's much more like the truck. But you can go and learn from these sites. So your listeners is go to YouTube and type in, and it's the quality, like GPT chat, it's the quality of the question. And if you didn't like the answer, change your question, and you become better at learning how to ask the question, and you'll find it on YouTube. You're going to find someone that's going to talk about this, and they have so many great clips now on AI, where it's going, the latest innovations that are taking place. They're entertaining, and they make you feel young, because you feel like, I'm cool, I know what the 23-year-old kid's doing. But besides that, they have really technical reports on stuff that would bore the average person. I'm building a data center. Oh, you want to buy a server? What type of server you want to buy? Oh, there's all these instruction parts you want to look for, A to B to C, how many ports you have, and do you want Juniper cables? Well, why you want Juniper cables? Why you want this?
Yeah.
So you can learn, self-learn a lot through the YouTubes and listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
You're driving, get used to listen to podcasts. You can get the simple earplugs. You could be in a train and you can listen to those podcasts. And I think that that's really important for CEOs. And if you're not doing it, get with the program to be competitive intellectually.
I think that's great advice. And for as much as many senior executives delegate so much work and rely on their teams, I think it's sage advice that they've got to get their hands in the pie and really start to learn more. So,
and what you think of, you can work out. We could be right now on a recumbent bike listening to this interview, right?
Yeah.
So you can do 2 for 1. Now that's a score for an executive.
we like that.
All right, 2 for 1.
Yeah. So building on 2 for 1, how about 200 to 1? You're involved in so many things, today and in the past. Tell us about what's happening right now with Hive and what you're excited about.
Hive was the first of many events, and it's an innovative technology company. That's really, and we're the most efficient, we're green only. We have a huge data center right on the border of Maine, 80 megawatts in Canada, using hydroelectricity. We're in Iceland, we're in Sweden. And so the big transition was we were the first to mine Ethereum in a big number size. Like we were 5% of the global network at one time before it went to proof of work to proof of stake. That's where I learned about the GPU chips, and you need almost 2 to 3 number of workers to an ASIC mining. It's more complex, and it lent myself to learn about NVIDIA and their chips versus AMD chips. So one time I had 140,000 AMD chips moving, and they were in northern Sweden, and so now I have 40,000 NVIDIA high performance GPU chips, and so you start to realize that the industry, these chips are not just gaming. When NVIDIA used to have their big week for investors to come out and entertain, etc., it was predominantly gamers, and now it's all about these other applications. And he's been brilliant what NVIDIA does. They do what Berkshire Hathaway does. So you go to Warren Buffett's annual meeting and you're in a hockey arena, a stadium, 15,000 people, and you've got all these people with their laptops taking notes because they want that experience. And you walk through a tunnel and you go to a big convention like we're here at this conference. And they're all Berkshire companies. So you can buy Dairy Queen ice cream. They're going to sell it to you. Nothing's free. Got Geico Insurance, got discounts. They got jewelry. They got furniture. They have all of his businesses come in, so you get this experiencing economy. And that was a very important piece of research for your listeners that came out in, I think it was out of Harvard in like 97, 98. And you see that much more today with younger people. They don't want the materialism as much as they want the experience. So that idea of going to Thailand or going some other place, it's all about the experience. So look what they spend for rock concerts now. Look what they go and spend for tickets. Taylor Swift hardly has any followers in Europe compared to America. So what do the airlines do? 4-day junket. Take your daughter and you fly over there, and you weren't going to go to Paris anyway, and all of a sudden you're in Paris, you're in Barcelona, you're in Milan, you're in England, you're in Ireland, you're in Scotland. Where do you want to go? They have the 4-day junket, and the tickets are 1/3 the price that are here. Because Americans want experience. Ever since COVID, the mindset has changed, and I see this with my Jets ETF. There's no discounts booking a year out. Used to be, we're going to go next year to Africa and we can get it cheap. And there's no cheap tickets. And as you get closer and you haven't booked your ticket, actually probability prices are going to go higher. So there's an emotional change since COVID on people wanting to have this experiencing world. And I think that this is to recognize whatever your business is. When talking to Jensen, the CEO for NVIDIA, he's very big into that. Like he wants to know who's the end user for his chips, because if they come through Hive and that person has a bad experience, they're not going to blame Hive, they're going to blame him. So he's got all these sort of quality controls on what do I have. Well, I read the book, I know the cases, and they're very valuable, so that when you walk into a store, you don't realize every product store is the same. When you go to high-end hotels, what do you notice? First you walk in, the smell. So you have something you see, you smell, and you hear, and then immediately starts igniting an experience. You're buying that experience. Let me into this experience. And he's taking something that's a computer, and he wants you to have an experience. Now that's an intellectual, almost like a spiritual jump.
It's incredible.
And so he's so caught up with that. And I think that lends itself where he sees for these other industries. Hive is participating there. Hive is building out the AI business. Hive is right now about 2 megawatts, and we're going to 10 megawatts. That means we'll do about 100 million in revenue. And on a pro forma basis, that should be about like $50 million at EBITDA. Right now, we're running at, I would say, about $1 million a month of free cash flow, and I expect that to go to 20 million by the fall, and this time next year we're talking to be 100. That's the goal. It's an audacious goal. I'm concerned about every day where we're making our progress. There's a global scramble for data center energy. Everyone wants this energy, and now what's become revived is nuclear sites. So Amazon went and bought basically the rights to 900 megawatts of nuclear energy.
Incredible.
That is incredible, because before you would never do that because nuclear was perceived as bad, like carbon is bad. No, it's not, and it's renewable in the context. So there's a scramble for the energy for the data centers for the big AI boom. And Hive wants to be there. We're big believers in the Bitcoin as a private property, digital private property. What's remarkable about it, there's 18,000 nodes. There's 195 countries in the world, about 150 central banks that really function like central banks, but there's 18,000 nodes working 24/7, no holidays, validating all the transactions and supporting the system globally. So China went against the Bitcoin, it takes a dent, falls down, comes right back. The same thing happened in the US. They get attacked by the big banks, etc. And I see at this, MasterCard's right over here. MasterCard, they announced today what they're going to be doing with the wallet with Bitcoin. So this idea of the digital transformation, Bitcoin has created all these tokens. It's created Web3, and it's evolving differently. And it's very much, we talked about earlier, the complex adaptive system, CAS. And you can put that in your ChatGPT and it'll tell you everything about it for quickness of trying to grasp it. But it's very important in biological models. It's used by some of the best quant funds for predictive analytics for entrepreneurs at the helm. So that CEO, they will always make mistakes, but it's how fast do they rebound and reset and reposition. And there's that DNA that people have. And so for other CEOs, I say follow them. Follow the techniques of the best, and then you'll be able to add your own flavor to it, and it makes it easier.
Well, Frank Holmes, talk about techniques of the best. You are a gift to the investing sector.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Your advice in the entrepreneurial and executive world is second to none, and I have had an incredible experience spending time with you today.
No, you're very kind. Thank you, thank you.
I appreciate it, Frank.